Top 10 Most Dangerous Battles in World History. The strange, weird, and darkly humorous battle number 6, Battle of Passchendaele 1917. If hell had a muddy basement, it would be Passchendaele, also known as the Third Battle of Ypres. This 1917 offensive combined all the worst elements of WW1, poison gas, artillery, bombardments, machine guns, and the newest horror, mud. So much mud. British Field Marshal Haig chose to attack in Flanders, Belgium, an area known for its high water table and drainage problems. Just as the region experienced its heaviest rainfall in 30 years. The preliminary artillery barrage destroyed the drainage systems, and the shell-cratered landscape became a swamp. The result was a surreal, nightmarish battlefield where men didn't just die from bullets and shells, they drowned in mud. Soldiers reported watching helplessly as wounded comrades sank into the muck and disappeared. Mules, horses, and even tanks vanished into the earth. One account describes a wooden duckboard path across the muddy wasteland that suddenly ended because it was resting on a pile of corpses that had sunk below the surface. The dark humor. British war correspondents were forbidden from using the word mud in their reports to maintain morale back home. Instead, they referred to challenging ground conditions while soldiers drowned in sludge up to their waists. Another grimly comical fact: soldiers were ordered to stick to established paths to avoid sinking into mud pits. These paths, naturally, were heavily targeted by German artillery. The choice? Risk drowning in mud or being blown to bits on the path. Canadian Arthur Currie, upon seeing the battlefield, protested the attack, saying it would cost 16,000 casualties. His superiors dismissed his concerns. The Canadians eventually took the ridge, suffering exactly 15,654 casualties, eerily close to Currie's prediction. After 3 months, 275,000 British and 220,000 German casualties, and gains of just 5 miles at the deepest point, the offensive was called off. The ground was recaptured by Germany 4 months later in their 1918 spring offensive. A German officer wrote, "Passchendaele was not a battlefield, it was a graveyard of both armies." Battle number 5, Battle of Leyte Gulf 1944. Moving from the mud of Belgium to the waters of the Philippines, the Battle of Leyte Gulf stands as the largest naval battle in history and one of the most chaotic. This massive confrontation involved 200,000 personnel and 282 warships spread across 100,000 square miles of ocean. What made this battle particularly dangerous was the introduction of a new weapon, the kamikaze. October 25, 1944, saw the first organized kamikaze attacks in history, as desperate Japanese pilots deliberately crashed their aircraft into American ships. The dark humor. The battle featured what historians call the last stand of the tin can sailors, where the USS Johnston, a small destroyer, charged an entire Japanese fleet including the Yamato, the largest battleship ever built. It was like a chihuahua attacking a pack of wolves. The Johnston's captain, Ernest Evans, told his crew before the battle, "This will be a fight against overwhelming odds from which survival cannot be expected." He wasn't kidding, but the tiny American ships fought so ferociously that they convinced the Japanese admiral they were facing a much larger force. The Japanese turned away, inadvertently saving American troops landing at Leyte. Another bizarre moment. American submarines spotted the approaching Japanese fleet days earlier, but their reports were dismissed because they had previously made false reports. When aircraft finally confirmed the sighting, the radio message was coded so poorly that it took over 4 hours to decode. Precious time lost. Perhaps the most controversial moment came when Admiral Halsey took his entire Third Fleet north to chase Japanese aircraft carriers, leaving the landing beaches unprotected. The Japanese carriers were actually bait deliberately sacrificed to lure Halsey away. When the American High Command realized the danger, they sent the famous message, "Where is Task Force 34? The world wonders." Due to a communication error, the decorative phrase "the world wonders" was included in the decoded message, which Halsey interpreted as a public rebuke. He flew into a rage, throwing his cap on the deck before turning his fleet around too late to prevent the sacrifice of the small escort carriers and destroyers left behind. Despite these errors, the battle ended in American victory, effectively destroying the Imperial Japanese Navy as a fighting force. The cost: 10,000 Allied casualties, 12,500 Japanese casualties, and 28 ships sunk, including Japanese super battleships Musashi and Yamato's sister ship. Battle number 4, Battle of Chosin Reservoir 1950. If you want to experience warfare in the most hostile conditions imaginable, try fighting at the Chosin Reservoir in North Korean winter. American and Uni forces did just that in November-December 1950 in what became known as the Frozen Chosin. The battle began when 30,000 U.S. Marines and Army troops suddenly found themselves surrounded by 120,000 Chinese soldiers who had secretly crossed into North Korea. The temperature: a balmy 30 degrees Fahrenheit. What made this battle uniquely dangerous wasn't just the overwhelming enemy force, it was the cold. Morphine syrettes had to be thawed in medics' mouths before they could be injected. Frozen blood plasma was useless. Vehicle batteries died constantly. Rifle lubricant froze, requiring soldiers to urinate on their weapons to thaw them. Talk about dedication to your equipment. The dark humor. Marines developed a saying: if you can pull the trigger with your mitten on, it's not that cold. When that failed, they quipped, "You're not really a Marine until you've eaten frozen sea rations with a trench knife." Cold casualties outnumbered combat casualties. Men who fell asleep often never woke up. The wounded who couldn't be evacuated quickly usually froze to death. Vehicles had to be kept running 24/7 to prevent freezing, creating fuel shortages. Some units reported that 70% of their troops suffered frostbite. When a Marine Corps general arrived to assess the situation and asked the commander if they were retreating, Colonel Louis Chesty Puller famously replied, "Retreat, hell. We're just attacking in another direction." The Marines had to fight their way out along a single narrow road through mountainous terrain, building bridge after bridge as the Chinese destroyed them. They brought out their dead and wounded, 4,500 of them, plus all their functional equipment. One Marine, when asked about leaving their dead behind, replied, "No one was left behind. If they were dead, they were still Marines." Despite being surrounded and outnumbered for 2-1, the Marines inflicted crippling casualties on the Chinese, an estimated 30,000 dead, many from the cold, while conducting one of the most difficult fighting withdrawals in military history. When they finally reached the port of Hungnam, one officer sent a simple message: "The Marines have landed." The situation is well in hand. Dark military humor at its finest.